So someone wanted to know about the retinal causes of a relative afferent pupillary defect, and you should look at that video on RAPD to know that that localizes to a defect in the pupil pathway on the afferent side that's relative to the fellow eye. And so the pupil pathway arises in the retina, and then travels in the optic nerve, the chiasm, the optic tract, and goes to the midbrain to become the efferent pathway on the third nerve, Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So this whole pathway is what we call the afferent pupillary pathway. And because the retina is included in the afferent pupillary pathway, you can get an RAPD from retinal disorders. But not every retinal disorder. So I assume that's the etiology of the question. So when you have a retinal lesion, if it's not involving the retinal ganglion cell layer and the axon that becomes the optic nerve, it cannot produce an RAPD. So what would that be like? Epiretinal membrane. That's on top of the retina. So it doesn't matter what your acuity is. If it's epiretinal membrane, that can't cause an RAPD because that's not affecting the pupil pathway. It is affecting the afferent pathway because they can't see, but it's not really causing a pupil pathway problem. However, something like a retinal artery occlusion, branch retinal artery occlusion, or cherry red spot, central retinal artery occlusion. A central retinal artery occlusion is going to produce an RAPD because it is killing the inner retina, and that includes the pupil pathway. However, some things affect the retina and aren't killing the ganglion cell. And so if it's just sick but not dead, it might not be an RAPD. And so an RAPD, in for example, a CRVO, is one of the signs that we use to determine whether we have ischemic CRVO or non-ischemic CRVO, because sick retina can still send the signal. Dead retina cannot send the signal. And if you have a retinal detachment, obviously, that's going to cause a RAPD. But there's some retinal detachments that are too small, and that's the relative part. So if you have like a little serous detachment, it's not enough difference between the two eyes to cause it. So even though you could have a focal serous detachment here, like central serous retinopathy, that might not cause an RAPD because it's just too small. Same with macular edema. It's affecting your vision, and it is in the macula, but it's not enough to make a detectable RAPD. Vitreous hemorrhage, probably it shouldn't cause an RAPD. Now in the literature they say it can, but you should really be doing an ultrasound, and it better be blocking your vision kind of vitreous hemorrhage, not just a regular vitreous hemorrhage. So anything in front of the pupil pathway, in front of this retinal ganglion cell, probably cannot cause RAPD, or it might cause RAPD in the other eye, because it causes more light scatter. And you can watch the video on how a cataract causes an RAPD on the other eye. So what are the retinal causes of an RAPD? Any retinal lesion that involves the afferent pupillary pathway and is big enough relative to the other eye to allow detection will cause an RAPD.